Well, hello and welcome to this very special edition of the Author's Voice podcast. I'm your host, Donnie Lansdale, and as a former late-night radio talk show host, podcaster, and audiobook narrator, I'm thrilled to bring you engaging conversations with talented authors from all walks of life. Today, I am pleased to have as my guest the incredibly versatile author David Wilson. David, how the heck are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm great. It's been a while. We have some history together, and we go back quite a ways.
It's fun to actually see your face because we talk to each other all the time, and it's always text and email.
We're both extremely busy. I just finished a book. I have two that I'm working on right now as far as my audiobook narration services go. And then, of course, back about, I guess it's been 2 months now, we decided to collaborate on this new book, Last Drive. And that's why we're here to talk a little bit about it. I'm very happy to have you on board for the project. As a matter of fact, not being a writer in any sense of the words, no pun intended, I'm an audiobook narrator. I wanted to find someone that I knew that I could trust and feel comfortable with. I just finished narrating your book, The Devil's Final Offer, which I enjoyed doing. And I just felt a comfort level there. You would be the first person that, and only person that I even presented the project to.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Do you remember how we came to that decision? Do you remember what I said to you? Remember I said, we'll take a look at this because I've never co-authored or authored somebody else's story. And of course, I've done my own memoir. And I also have another book based on family. So I understand where you're coming from. But remember what I said to you? I said, give me your notes. I'll do one chapter. And if that chapter is the direction you want to take the book, then we'll go ahead and do it.
I was absolutely blown away when I read that, and I said, okay, this is spot on, and there's so many different ways we can take this story, and I wanted it to be believable. And when we talked about where we wanted to go with the book, I was a little concerned, not from anything that you would be able to provide or add to the story, but how can we make this person a real person that made this kind of transformation that we'll talk about in a minute, but how we could make it believable. And you did that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what helped is the fact that these are characters based on your own family and people that you've known. And I think what I asked you to do was send me notes about the real person. Tell me who the people are, and then give me an idea of where you want to go with it. And then I just had to start picking my own brain and say, and you almost have to, in your own mind, you almost have to outline the book and decide where you're going to go with it. And then you start writing it chapter for chapter for chapter and hope it all flows and hope it all falls into line. But a lot of it had to do with what you had told me about this character of Dorman. The primary character's name is Dorman in the book, based on somebody in your family. And yeah, it was just, I've written psychological thrillers before. And I used my past experiences from that to develop this particular character. But I got to tell you, it was tough to make that transformation. And I think you know that we had a lot of conversations about how are we going to make this transformation, because the character starts out who he is, and then he becomes somebody entirely different by chapter 2 and chapter 3. And there's a backstory to him that you and I created. And then there's a story about where his, and I don't want to say multiple personality because that would not be the correct terminology, but he becomes this entirely other person who is going to, show him whether his previous life has been truth or a lie. But a lot of it is just picking my own brain and saying, where can I take this character? Where can I go with this character? And then I think the great part about the collaboration is I would send you, rather than write an entire book and I send it to you and you look at it, we did it chapter for chapter. And I would ask you, is this going in the right direction? Is this where your vision was supposed to go? And are you okay with what I'm doing with the character? Because I don't know this person. I've never known this person. Are you okay with where I'm taking this character to? And I think it flowed very nicely. I think it worked out really well.
It did. Dorman being a real person and understanding, this is many, many years ago. He's been gone for several years. Everyone that's related in the story no longer alive, and the names have all been changed, of course. But which is something that I felt comfortable with after speaking with some of my family, if anyone would have a problem with that, and they all agreed that it's a little odd that you would be doing this after all these years, but if it's something you feel that you wanted to do, I think, let's give it a shot. But he was a deeply flawed member of the family and again, as we go through the book, the readers will find just how flawed he really is. Unfortunately, this started and was not really, well, I guess it was a result of his childhood, as it is in most cases with flawed people that end up in different life situations that some are very ugly. This was started at the very early age, and he was the youngest of 7 siblings. And he had 3 brothers and 3 sisters, and he came in late. And this was after all the other family members had grown and moved out of the home, and only mom was around to cater for him and to raise him at that point. But he never left home because he obviously was in a position where, like a lot of people, not going to do any more than we have to. And he certainly held up to that. Enjoyed the way we explained. And the fun thing about this book, the most I think is very interesting, is we don't stop by just developing the character at a certain point in time. What your knack is and what your ability is to continue to develop that person. He grows the character grows and develops, and we see someone who starts out in a very precarious situation as a young man, and we can almost see where it's going. And what you do is you bring to life the where that road leads to and what paths that person is taking. So I think that's the amazing part of it. What would you say in regards to that?
Yeah, we certainly took that. I mean, it is a psychological thriller. There is a fanciful vibe to the book that's nothing that we hide from the readers. It's not just a murder mystery, it's a murder mystery plus, because this character ultimately becomes somebody else altogether. But we certainly take that character to some dark places, there's no doubt. And that's part of my style of writing, and that's something that you also wanted to do with the character as we were having our conversations back and forth. Really, we didn't even have an ending when we started. We had the premise of an ending, but during our character development, it kind of drove us to where the ending was going to be in the book. And certainly I'm not going to give up the ending for anybody. But yeah, like I said, we took that character to a lot of dark places, and there was a lot of character development. And I think one of the challenges with the book, and you're correct in this, is that we continue to develop the character of Dorman all the way through the book, all the way to the end. We don't just describe who he is in the beginning. You learn about this character as he learns about himself, which is part of the premise of the book, is that he's discovering things about his past that he has either forgotten or he has forced out of his memory that come back to him. And other characters in the book have a lot to do with that. Other characters in the book show him things that he may have blocked out of his memory and he didn't want to remember. But one of the interesting things is this concept of, quote, flashbacks, where he's thinking about things that happened in his past, or other people are talking to him about things that happened in his past because they know him. And that was very challenging to do that. And I think a lot of times readers don't like to see a lot of things like that. But I think we made it flow very well that, we wanted to develop this character all the way through the book, which means he has to be thinking about his past.
Right.
At various points during the book. And I think it worked. I don't know what your opinion is on that, but I think it
Well,
worked very well.
I think it worked well. The one of the things that really I enjoyed in the process is that we were able to take, as I said with Dorman, who had an undiagnosed illness that at the time was not recognized by family members. They had no idea why he was acting that way. I think the closest explanation that anyone could come up with was depression. I didn't know what depression was for a long time. So, but it was actually much deeper than that. And I think you described that early on, where and people would say, well, why would you turn against your own family member? Why would you try to avoid, like, someone that needed the help? And so someone in the family did reach out and said, okay, you should get some help. And of course, unfortunately, this happened as a result of what happened in the book. And the readers will be interested to find out how some people react when something tragically happens in their lives, and how it can affect their psychological being. And this was truly the case with Dorman. When someone goes off the rails, what happens? But it goes much deeper and darker in that area. This was a good opportunity to present what you did with the story, because it gave you so many different options. It says, okay, well, let's see where we can go with this, and you took it for a ride for sure.
Well, and I remember you saying to me when you first had this concept of approaching me about taking your story and writing the book, was you wanted Dorman to become a completely different person, and that happens in the book. He becomes somebody else. And of course, with any good psychological mystery, which is really what this is, there has to be twists and turns. There has to be the things that the reader is not going to expect. And certainly there are things in this book that the reader won't expect. But I thought it was interesting because we really didn't have that other personality in mind when we started this. And then we created this person who he becomes. And again, I don't want to give the book away to anybody, but the premise of it is that this gentleman wakes up one day and he's in another body and he's another person, and doesn't know who that is, obviously, and he has this deep desire to figure out, who is this person I have become. And lo and behold, he meets this person who's no longer with us. Nobody else can see this other person. And they have these conversations where he not only has to learn about himself, but he has to learn, who is this person I've become and what's my purpose? Because there's one of the other twists in the book, is that there is another purpose. There is this another entire character who also has, let's say, a dark side, and wants to use Dorman for their own specific purpose. And I think it's a very different book. I think the readers are really going to enjoy the fact that this isn't your regular run-of-the-mill murder mystery or psychological mystery. There is a lot going on in this book. And we created a few other characters. One of my favorite characters is the detective in the book. Having a law enforcement background, I was able to create this character from other people I've known. So not only did you get to write about your own family, I got to use personalities from people I've dealt with to create other characters in the book. And I thought that was a lot of fun.
That was the first thing that I noticed when I was reading through it, and you hit me with this saying, you know what? I think we need to bring in, and it made sense with the way the story was flowing, that someone needed to step in, another character step in and say, wait a minute, I'm going to try to figure out what the hell's going on here. And you were able to bring in the law enforcement person that was in with your experience and everything. One of the things I wanted to mention, and without giving anything away, was how well you were able in chapter 2 to describe that transformation. I was overwhelmed, and I think that when people will read this applies to both men and women. When they read this about this transformation and how you describe it, it's eerily similar to probably what I would think and what they would be thinking if it happened to them. And that is where that professional edge that you have with the descriptive, and I picked this up early on in the Devil's Final Offer, was how you were able to describe when you were talking about hell, and I'm thinking, well, now this is not what your normal person would probably describe or even think of hell as. They have a whole different picture. But in the Devil's Final Offer, you give them options that are actually very satisfyingly terrifying. And I mean, when I say satisfyingly terrifying, it's like, holy cow, I never thought of that, but that would be hell. I mean, and so when we switched over to, and we changed gears in this one, and that's really what we did, was that we started changing some gears here and started letting Dorman, finally wake up to a different world and a different possibility and the different potentials. And at first he's like so shocked, as anyone would be, but then he kind of gets that transition kind of sits in, and he becomes very comfortable with it, and he's got to have more. And then we go on to some other things, uh, and then of course there's a marriage involved here, and we won't give anything away there, but that's another surprise that we throw in. But we don't just do it as a marriage; we do it as an event, and I think more of it weaves itself right into the book. And I hope I didn't say anything I wasn't supposed to
No,
there.
no, 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 not at all. Like I said, there's a lot going on in the book. One of the things I like to do when I'm writing, I don't want the reader to become bored in any way. And I'll give you an example. I've read many slasher novels where you know in every chapter somebody's going to die, and at the end there's going to be a plot twist and you figure out who the killer is. I don't like that. I like to have, and I think you having narrated The Devil's Final Offer, you know that in every single chapter there's something new happening. There's nothing predictable in the books that I write, and that's the way I like to write, and that's what my readers expect of me. Not to mention a little bit of dark humor, which we also have in this book.
Right, right.
But I never want them to be able to predict what's coming. So I think that we did achieve that. And talking about that transformation, when the Dorman character has a transformation, he becomes this other person. I think you hit it spot on, because initially he embraces it, because he starts out as an elderly man. He's maybe towards the end of his life, and now all of a sudden he becomes this other younger person, and he embraces that in the beginning and says, wow, this is almost like the fountain of youth. And then as he starts to realize who the person is, who he has become, or even better, who he thinks he has become, because he's also mistaken about that, he comes to realize that maybe this isn't such a good thing. And that's where we can go down that dark road and for the reader, give them a sense of what he's thinking psychologically as he starts to figure out, this might not be what I wanted. This might not be so comfortable after all, because I don't know who this other person is, and this other person might not be somebody that I would have chosen to be. And I think we do that with the book too. But yeah, I think the readers will be very pleased with the fact that they're not going to be bored with this book. I think that they'll really enjoy the ending, and the ending isn't in the last chapter. The ending, and I also like to do this in my books. You don't read an entire book and then all of a sudden twist at the end. We work our way into it, so that they never become bored and they never want to put the book down. They have to know what's coming next. And I think we achieved that in this book.
We certainly did. In this case, I like to think of it as, bad things happen to good people, but really, bad things happen to bad people in this one, and 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 I guess good things too. I mean,
Absolutely, absolutely. And
it
of course,
wasn't like we put him, we put him in a dungeon and locked the door, but in a
but somebody
sense,
might end up there, right? Somebody in the book might end up there.
yeah, right, yeah. So,
One of
but
the
it
other
was.
interesting things about this, and if you do get a chance to show the cover, that's awesome, because there is a character in this book that you don't expect to be a character, and that's this cherry red 1961 Corvette, which is on the cover of the book, and that is actually an integral piece of the book. And that's something you came up with. I mean, that was something you said in the beginning, is that this has to be in there.
I'll never forget the car itself, and it was absolutely gorgeous, and it never could figure out who bought it for him or whether he bought it for himself, but it was his pride and joy right out of the gate. And the story that you talk about, having the nephews come over, and is absolutely true. There would be times when we would come over and visit with our grandmother, and Dorman would be home with the Corvette parked in the garage, and they pull it out, and he'd say, "Come on, guys, I'll give you a quarter if you wash and wax my car." And of course, we never quite could get it just the way he wanted it to. So he would say, "Okay, here's your quarter now," and then we'd see him out there fixing whatever we messed up. So it was. That was an interesting thing. The sad part about the book is, I think, how how treating people the wrong way. I think there's, this is an interesting part, I think, of the way you write. And it's almost like, okay, we have a situation here where we have a sad sack, sorry protagonist that is a victim in many ways, but yet there's a lesson to be learned for the actions and the things that we do in life. And this is a classic, almost reminder that, even though it's out there a little bit, but inside, deep inside, I almost feel like you're writing a lesson too. Would you agree to that?
I would, and my readers have said that about me. If you go back a couple of books, Last Stop, Ground Floor, which that particular book is about a serial killer that ends up in hell and has to face what he's done all over again. And even in The Devil's Final Offer, when you have this young man who's faced with the prospect of having to spend eternity in hell because of what he's done throughout his life, readers will tell me that the books, and I don't do this intentionally. I write a book to entertain the readers. I don't write a book specifically for to provide a moral to a story or anything. But they've told me that the books have made them think. It's made them think about, if I do this, what will happen to me, or where will I end up? And so I think this book does that too. You're right. You have this elderly gentleman who maybe, he does have these issues going on, these underlying issues, but he also probably hasn't made the best choices, even when he had been provided the opportunity to do so. And now he's having to deal with the consequences of those choices. And of course, in the book, there's a major decision that he made that he shouldn't have, without giving it away. And he has to deal with the consequences of that by other people showing him, or this other alter ego showing him what he did, and now what the consequences are going to be. Which certainly, again, we take it to some pretty dark places, and there certainly are consequences.
Before we wrap this up, I'd like to go ahead and play for our viewers the trailer for the book trailer for it. This is something I put together a couple days ago, and will be on both of our websites and available, and on our Facebook pages as well. So let's see if we can bring this up here right now.
There's so many hidden things in that trailer that are just so awesome. Having written it, I can recognize them, but if the readers only knew.
Leave you asking, how could that how could this happen?
Right, how could this happen? I'm glad you approached me on it. I've never done a collaboration effort before, and I have 8 published books at this point, and some others that are going to be in the works. But I had a lot of fun with this one. And I think part of that is because you let me go where, you let my mind go where I felt it should, and then you said, "Yeah, I'm okay with that," and I think that was pretty important.
And one of the reasons we were able to do this was because Dorman was such a unique individual, as flawed as he might have been, left the door open to a lot of possibilities. Because as you're developing the character, you're basing that off of a lot of the real things that happened in his life. It was pretty easy, and I thought to myself, do I have enough information for David to accomplish this story and to tell this story, which I thought was worth telling right from the beginning. I wanted to do something, not so much to. I just thought this is something I need to do, and I've always had the dream. I've been narrating books for a long time. I'm very popular on the Writers Forum Facebook group. I'm one of the preferred people on the group that they will allow as an audiobook narrator. But I kind of caught that bug, as you might say, as I thought, be an author. Now what do I do? I don't want to write about myself because it would be even more bizarre than Dorman's life. I mean, I don't even want to go there. And there's too many people that are still alive that I'm sure would not appreciate the story of my life. Anyway, we got Dorman taken care of, and that's okay with me.
Well,
Okay,
and
people can.
and I've done that in my books because I have a memoir of my time in law enforcement, but I also have another book, Two Seasons, which is a humor book, and it's based on people in my life. And I think you're actually paying homage to those people. It doesn't matter what you do with the story. That's not the point. The point is that you took somebody that you knew, and other people that you knew, and you created a story around them. So that's really paying homage to them, regardless of what the actual story in the book is.
Yeah, and I just I just hope that when people read the book that they'll be entertained because as you know, that's the main point is I want to entertain you, I want to keep things moving and that's another reason that I wanted you to do this because in The Devil's Final Offer, you keep things moving and I can't wait to get to the next chapter to find out what the heck's going to go on here. And this book will be, I think, will hold its own in that respect, if not more. And we're really getting out there on some things, and people will scratch their head. But in the same respect, I think they will be happy and appreciative that I never saw this coming. And that's why I think I had no idea that was coming. And that pretty much sums up how we wanted to do the book. We wanted to make it so that people would think that and feel that and understand that. So, and I can't wait to narrate it once we get this thing finished. It's going to be interesting for me to do that as well. And I'm looking forward to that project. We're hoping to get this book out next month in January of 2025. It's going to be tight, but we're going through the editing process right now and we're cleaning everything up and making everything ship shapes. We're hoping to do that. And then they're going to be able to find this on a lot of different platforms, right? David,
Yeah,
how's that going to work?
we will have it. All the major retailers will, online retailers will have it. Obviously, it'll be on Amazon. I have a website if people want to find it there. But yeah, it'll be wide distribution. We will have it. This will probably be a hardcover. I think we've decided on a hardcover book.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, it'll be an ebook, and at some point, like you said, you'll narrate it, and we'll have an audio book out there too. So it'll be easily found.
Wonderful. Dave, I will be talking to you soon as we are in communications on a daily basis. Thank you for being on. And I just want to let everyone know we're really, really excited about this project. And we want everyone, invite everyone to be supportive and help us with that by when the book comes out, purchasing it. And you won't be sorry, folks. I can tell you that right now, because this, if you're into a psychological thriller genre, then you're going to find that this is right there up at the top. We have great expectations, not only for distribution, but also for the results that we're going to get from our readers. And I think David shares that same thought process as far as
Oh, absolutely. I don't think people are going to be disappointed with this one. Of course, if anybody wants to look at the reviews on my other books to get an idea of my style of writing, hop over to goodreads.com or go to Amazon or go to my website and you'll get an idea of my style of writing. You can get some samples. But no, this will not disappoint. And I think this is going to capture multiple genres because you have the psychological thriller, you have the mystery in this, you have drama in this. So yeah, we're gonna capture a lot of readers with this one.
yeah, even a little spice too. I think
A
we
little
put a
bit,
little
a little
spice in
bit,
there.
something for
Okay.
everybody.
Oh gosh. So anyway, yeah, and on my Facebook page, I actually developed a Facebook page specifically for the book, and it's called The Music Chronicles, and it has nothing to do with our book, but Facebook only lets you change the name of a page every 6 months or something like that. But it's called The Music Chronicles, but it's actually about the book itself. We're excited about it, Dave. Thanks again, and
You.
we'll be in touch.
All right. Good to see you today.